Hey everybody, welcome back to the Caves Cast podcast. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Ryan.
and today we are going to be reviewing Immortal Thor, issue number 14. You know me. I do want to talk about these covers really fast. Uh so Simonson's been doing a string of variants for this, right?
Right.
They're all like pretty much the same. Like it's just Thor in a different pose, and then there's like some of the supporting cast in the background. Like the for 14, it's like, you know, Thor, Loki, Heimdall, who I think is Odin in the back. It looks like Odin, but they're all really cool, man. I don't know. It's cool to see him like still do stuff. He did that Loki one shot. What was it last year? The What If Dark.
Yeah.
He did that one, but that was like the only thing he's done. Like, I mean, other than like he's done a cover here and there. But I don't know. It's cool to see him do consistent stuff again. I mean, he's my favorite creator of all time. So
Right.
it's just like a because he's getting older, it's like a blessing to see him still do stuff. And it's not like other creators of his age group who have their work has absolutely tanked, or they've become just like this like bitter old turd of a human being, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I won't name drop these creators, but it's also like, dude, it's like this. It's nice. It's refreshing to see the one creator that from that era that I really, really enjoy his work is still like a pretty stand-up guy, and he's
Yeah.
still getting work. You know, it's cool.
Yep.
But yeah, and then 60 years of Sif, man, that's weird. I didn't
That's
even read
pretty
it
cool.
until the cover, you know?
That's
But
dope.
yeah, 60 years of the mighty Sif. All right, let's get into it.
Let's go.
Uh, so this is coming off the back of the annual and then issue 13. So the last couple of issues, like with the annual and 13, have been setting up this like one, a reunion with Thor and Hercules, which we saw last issue. But then that all started in the annual when Thor was looking for the Power Stone, but it ended up being because like the whole deal with the Infinity Gems or whatever, are these gems still or are they stones? I don't remember. They're the gems in the
They're
comic.
the gems in the comics, yeah.
Okay, so like well,
Infinite.
regardless, the Power Gem, yeah, it was taken by the Prince of Power. I think that was who I think was first introduced in Ewing's Guardians run. I mean, and I just read that. I'm literally have to pull in a blank right now. But he's in that. He's in the beginning of it, whatever he's in
Was that a
throughout the
great
run.
run? Was that a pretty good run?
It's good. Yeah, it's good. It's so funny because when that was coming out, I wasn't like the Ewing shill I am today, you
Right.
know? So like it was a process to get there, you know? But I had been reading his Guardians run as it was releasing, but I was reading so many things at the time. Like it's weird because there were books that I dropped that I feel like I shouldn't have, and there were books that I kept that I could have easily just gotten away with not finishing and been fine.
Right.
So like it kind of sucks to have to like go back and like read it online when I could have easily just grabbed it in single issue and have it. But Ewing's Guardians is one of those. Like I got like 3 or 4 issues in, I think. And then there were so many things on my pull list. I was like, I really need to trim this down, you know? So I just decided to drop it at that point. I don't even think that I was the only Ewing book I was reading, I think at that time might have been Immortal Hulk.
Oh, okay. So he was doing it around that time. Damn. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it was like, well, because it was right after Donny Cates is when he took over for
Got
Guardians.
gotcha.
Because it was like Donny Cates did like he did his 12 issues of Guardians, and then I want to say it was Silver Surfer Black that came right after that, or around that in that time frame, and then after that was Ewing's Guardians run.
Gotcha.
Which is weird. Okay, like that they're like Marvel's really just kind of passing the baton around to these
Yeah.
some of the writers because it's Thor, Venom, Guardians, where Ewing followed Cates, but then it was the opposite, where it's like Ewing then
It's the
Cates on
Hulk.
Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And then yeah.
yeah. It's
And
weird
then
to
and then Kate's did Thor, and now he's doing
okay.
Thor.
So that being said, because it kind of seems like Ewing is their guy right now, or one of their guys, what's the likelihood that some of his titles get passed on to PKJ after he's done?
I
Pretty
don't know.
good, you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially people, dude, I don't ever hear a single bad thing about his Hulk, like at all.
Oh, PKJ's Hulk?
Yeah, not
Dude,
a single bad word against it. Like I don't think I've ever heard anybody like even like online that I could find. I'm sure there's somebody out there,
sure.
but like to give like actual criticism and say that it's bad for like, legit reasons, whether but it's just so critically received. You know what I mean? Like,
I wouldn't mind PKJ doing Thor after Ewing.
oh,
It's
dude,
the
don't
same
even
way he
say
did
that to
Hulk
me,
after Ewing.
bro.
I
Don't
would.
even. Okay, because I read War Journal yesterday, right? The last issue.
Yeah, man.
It was crazy,
It
bro.
was
It was
great.
so cool,
It
man.
was great,
Oh,
man. I love
it
this
was
like
so
Ogren thing. I'm so glad he was finally
yes.
able to tell it.
And like it everything he writes is just like dripping with mythology. Like
Yeah, yeah.
since on the topic of books I've started reading and didn't finish because I'm a dumbass. The Fellspire Chronicles, The Last God, the one that he did for
Oh
DC,
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
when he first started, that shit goes hard, dude. It's basically high fantasy meets Lovecraftian horror.
Oh yeah.
It's wild. And Federici does the art on that.
Oh,
All the monster
oh,
designs are just
oh.
crazy work, bro.
Yeah,
It's the coolest thing.
Frederic
So
is incredible.
I need to finish that too. I'm just such a lazy bastard these days, man. Like I just can't be all my back issue reading killed me. I just don't want to read anything that much
I
anymore.
get you. I'm that way too, dude.
It's killing me. But yeah, let's talk about Thor. So the end of the last issue, so they got sent to wherever Nyx is at, like this realm of eternal darkness. So
Right.
that's where they're at currently. And they have a little bit of like a it is no, she doesn't show up in is it in this issue? Show up last issue or in this issue only?
He shows up both.
That's right. She did show up last issue. So in last issue, she kind of shows up. It's just like a quick like exchange. Not a lot happens other than I think they fight. I don't know. It's been a minute. Whatever. So the meat of this story arc is in this issue. So this is where everything that was like all the reveals, all the big fight, all that stuff happens in this issue. So at the end of last issue in 13, um, Thor and Hercules find themselves transported to a realm of eternal night, and they end up seeing Zeus, who has in Ewing's Guardians run, he was so prior to that, in I think it's Avengers No Road Home, um Ewing, I'm trying to think, it might have been Wade. I think Ewing and Wade did the story, did the event.
Okay.
And Nyx comes to power basically, and you've got Hercules and Scarlet Witch and some of the other Avengers that are in there. And they're fighting Nyx, and she kills Zeus and some of the other Greek gods, and they're reborn, but they're corrupted.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that's where they pick up in Ewing's Guardians, where we see them again, and Hercules has to face off against he's captured in the beginning of that. They bust him out, they fight the dark gods or whatever, and then Peter gets that power up to sun god or whatever he is. Um After that, he was banished, and he was banished here.
Okay.
So they went to go seek Zeus out because it's at this point it's like Skyfather business. Like something's happening and he needs to get counsel, or he needs to like something has to happen, and he's seeking out Zeus.
Right.
But this story, it opens up with um again, like every other issue of this, it opens up with another one of like the excerpts from one of
Yeah.
those myths.
Yes.
But this looks like it's from Greek mythology and not Norse mythology.
Right.
So then it says, then Zeus no longer held back his might, but straight his heart was filled with fury, and he showed forth all his strength. From heaven and from Olympus he came, forthwith hurling his lightning, the bolts flew thick and fast from his strong hand, which is very indicative of what he's doing in this issue, because he's just an angry guy,
Yeah.
big mad all the way through.
Yeah.
Um, so this these first couple of pages, damn, bro.
Yeah, dude. The ones
So
like it's showing like Zeus's like childhood and birth,
yeah,
basically.
so
Yeah.
it's really cool because this is Ewing's like Marvel twist on like the Greek pantheon being born, like that myth, like that classic myth where
Right.
you know Kronos eats them, and then the mother
Zeus
takes
later has to go get
yeah
them out. Yeah.
Zeus is taken away to Crete, I think is what it is, the island of Crete, and then he's brought back, years later, powerful enough to defeat his dad, and then he saves his siblings. So this does not change that at all. This doesn't change that myth. It just like, gives it the Marvel flavor.
Yeah.
Um, so it's Gaia and Rhea, I think is her name, correct?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Rhea, is that her name?
I think so, because it's yeah, Rhea. So that's Zeus's mom.
Gotcha.
So, and it's the other thing too is very cool because this she says you are responsible mother. So it's weird. So is she like, is this like she's just saying this because it's like the Mother Earth, it's Gaia, it's the planet, or is she directly calling her mother and saying that you're my mother and now this is your grandson?
Right.
Because that changes the dynamic a little bit because then you got
Because
Zeus
yeah,
throwing bolts at Uncle Thor.
right. Exactly. That's what I was about to say. If
Um,
that's her grandson, then Thor is her son.
yeah,
So
which is weird, man. It's. I really like that he's taking the time to really like dive into some of these pantheons because I feel like it's only a matter of time before we start getting into like some of the Egyptian gods that have shown up. I mean, and he's already name dropped one from like Mesopotamia, Egypt, Greece,
right.
Norse. Like he's just touching on all the bases, I think. So it'll be cool to see him kind of go like take the tour of the pantheons, as
Yeah.
if that's what this is going to be. Um, so it's just like Rhea is basically telling Gaia that classic myth of Kronos eating her kids. And so she basically says, it's your fault. This is, you're the reason this is happening because he did it to his father and you gave him the weapon to do so. Like he
Right.
castrated his dad and then, and then he had to kill him. So it's like this prophecy that's been fulfilled it'll be fulfilled again and then again because of this cycle that she's created.
Right.
And so and it's cool to see him like basically describe the wheel of fate without saying it at all. Because
Right.
in this line it says the seasons change, Oranos would not. Summer turns to autumn, winter to spring, and all things must live and grow and or wither and die. So I decreed in primal time, and I decree now, the age of deathless gods is no exception. And then, yeah, so he's really just like really fleshing out this idea that the Wheel of Fate it's more than just like a phrase or like a passing of time, like a new age coming in. It's like it's really, really ingrained in this story and in the characters that are involved.
Yeah.
Like Zeus, like, and we'll get to that. So like basically it boils down to here, I'm hiding Zeus. Okay, give me the child and you can have this stone and you can feed it to him and it'll satisfy his hunger forever. And then she said, and then Rhea asked, like, oh, what of my true son, like, what of Zeus? And then she says, he will remain with me. Give me the child.
Right.
And then she says no and attempts to run away. And when she runs, she realizes that she's just holding the stone, and
Right.
that guy does have Zeus. And this is the most interesting bit because I'm just gonna read it because it's just a lot, and without reading it, it's hard to explain.
Right.
It's just hush, little one, do not cry. I have a gift for you. I have seen a need far ahead in time, a need for a great champion who fights for the living earth and the lives I made upon it, who knows storm and sunlight, who knows fire, but is beyond the fire, one who will call spring from the winter, one born of my blood, who is my mercy. Is that you, little one? Have you the quickness of mind, the strength of spirit? Can you bear the worthy burden in your hand? Are you the sacrifice? No, there is potential in there, but you have your father's eyes, and I fear you cannot gain the necessary wisdom. But as a prototype, a pattern for the one to come, a final test, perhaps. Behold the Utgard key. It opens the gate, but only a crack this time. Only enough for a glimpse of my kind to escape it. You are the Skyfather from a Skyfather's line, and thus the lightning is your birthright held by your hand. But Tyrannos was more than the storm, and more will be needed. So in his name and mine, I mark you son of Kronos, a mark. I mark you with with his shadow. I mark you for all time. I mark you with the wheel of fate. This is a really, really, really big dump of like it's huge, and I think people are missing it because this
Yeah.
book's been out for a week now, and I don't really see a lot of like talk about it. But this basically, okay, so like we'll just take it like a little piece at a time. The first chunk when she talks about like, are you my champion, or like are you the great champion that I'm needing, like that, who is my mercy? We know he's not, because in issue 8, when Thor goes to Gaia, he's like, she says to him, "You're my mercy, Thor. I gave birth to
Right.
you so that you could save this planet."
So that's what I was going to ask. Did this incident she's having with Thor or with Zeus happen before Thor?
Yes,
Right.
yeah, because chronologically he is much older than Thor.
Right.
He's a lot older than Thor because he's like him and Odin have had like councils for eons. By
Right.
this, by the time that Thor's born, they've been the Skyfather for a pretty extended period of time.
Right.
Uh, so then she continues to question whether or not that he is this champion, if he's the Mercy, because technically he is of her blood, you know?
Because she basically even says that he's basically the prototype for what
Right.
to come.
So and that's the other big review. I mean, there's three. It kind of comes in three parts. Like the
Yeah.
one of, you know, while he is technically a child of Gaia, he's not the child destined. He's not the Mercy, you know?
Right.
So, but the next part of that is like, is the sacrifice. And we didn't know until like literally right now that he's like, it's not a fate that he can fight, or a fate that he can like, come out on top. Like, for everything points to Thor dying here in this whatever event that causes his death is what everybody's trying to prevent. Like, you
Right.
have Gaia who's predicting this thing and saying, "You're my mercy, and I'm going to bring about this dark age on Earth because they're just ruining me." And you're the only thing that can prevent that from happening. But here it's you know contextualized as a sacrifice. In other issues, like when the Roxxon stuff,
Yeah.
it's the same vision that Odin got and gave, and sent Scourge out of
Okay.
Valhalla
Yeah.
to go and take Thor's place. So there's a lot of moving parts here. Like,
Yeah.
you have the Roxxon stuff, which, other than the one connection to Gaia saying, "Hey, can you start like cracking skulls on the people that are ruining my planet?" Roxxon being the biggest offender, there's a reason why, and there's a reason why Amora and Scourge were there, and we're kind of getting a little bit more of that now. Like, we're learning that, like, they're all it, and I might even be wrong, because now it kind of feels like that guy is pushing him in this direction of, "Hey, you need to do this," whereas Odin and all the Asgardians are saying, "Hey, like, you can't do this. You are going to die if you do this."
Right.
So it's an interesting like dynamic on, for Thor especially, because on one side he has the people that he's loved and grown up with and been around and protected forever, the Asgard.
Right.
He has them and his father essentially in one ear saying, "Hey, like, let one of us take your place, so you don't have to do it, so you can just be king and you don't have to worry about it." But
Right.
Thor's pride and Thor's like need to protect is what's preventing him from like giving it up.
Right.
Whereas
That makes
Guy is like feeding into that and saying, "Hey, like, go ahead, like, protect the people you love, protect the people I created, because that's the only thing that's going to stop my wrath."
right.
So it's cool to see, like, it really is all coming together in this issue, like, and then you have the bit with the dark wheel, like, it's and we don't even know what that means,
And that's
because
like
we
a
don't.
heavy theme throughout this entire issue is that wheel. The
Yeah, right. So it's like it's such a big, like, it's a huge couple of pages right from the go.
right.
And I mean, the whole
Which
issue is just gas the whole
in a
time.
couple
Like,
more pages we'll see what the wheel actually is and what it means and what you could do.
yeah, right. So like, and then it basically, that's really all that happened in those first few pages. But you're just learning that Zeus was the prototype for Thor. So every bit of power, including the Wheel of Fate, like all of these things that Gaia marked him with and like set on his path to power and greatness, it was all just a prototype for Thor.
Right.
So, and knowing the kind of character that Zeus is, that has to be such a huge blow to his ego.
Right. To be like the not like
Yeah, to
the
basically
recessive
see
one,
like,
basically the guinea pig, like the
yes,
you know.
yeah, to basically say, hey, you're good, but my son is better, and you have to suffer for my son to like come into this role.
Right. I had to have had made mistakes with you to make sure I don't have mistakes with him. So
Right,
more or
right.
less.
Yeah, it's just family drama is what it boils down to, bro.
Yeah, which is pretty
Uh,
cool to
yeah,
think that like Zeus, even though he's from a different pantheon, is more or less like, you know what I mean? Like it's like they're
like
from different pantheons that are
yeah,
disconnected, but coming from
and
the
I've been
same
saying that
stem of
since the
Gaia.
beginning, like since issue one, like I had like like the three things I wanted from this book, like in particular, and I knew that Ewing was a person that could deliver on them. Was one, either give me more of those who sit above in shadows, or give me all of it. Tell me who they are, what they are, everything. You know what I mean? Like it's been a mystery for like 20 years at this point. Let me have it. Um, the gods and his connection to them, because Gaia being his mother, she has a seat on every pantheon. So that makes him related to every single god and pantheon on Earth.
Right,
He's the only god who is.
right,
The only god who technically has a relation to every other pantheon. Like a direct blood relation, essentially.
yeah,
Because every other god was spawned from the demiurge, and she is life. Like the demiurge and her helped create a new form of life during the God War. I would have to think that that's the new god, like the newer gods, like
right.
the Norse gods, the Greek gods, all these other gods. Um, and the majority of and then that third thing I really wanted was, I mean, honestly, just give me a really, really well told, intricate, like epic, like fun story to read every single month. And I've been getting that. So, like, I've got two of the three things that I asked for. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
So, like, it's just good, man.
It is
This book is so good.
fantastic.
Um, this most of this is just the fight between Zeus and Thor. Um, it's so funny though because Zeus is just pissed, man. Like he's saying, like you're just from like the backwater land, like you're worshipped by savages and barbarians, like my worshipers invented like philosophy and like civilization and mathematics and like all of these like intellectual things, but you're just a stupid brute.
Right.
And and he says, he said, your only business with me, Squaw God, is to kiss the ground at my feet. And one of the like, he just looks at the lightning bolt and says, turn.
Yes.
Which
Kind of see him like kind of move like a wheel out of the way, like he kind of just turn.
yeah, literally it's just like turn, turn.
Yeah. It's
And
like
that
he's
happens
on a
later on in this
wheel and
issue.
he just turned. Like,
Yeah, he just went whoop. Yeah, he just
yeah,
like basically just spoke to it and said, you don't hit me, please.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh. And it's cool to see that like that being a theme throughout the whole book, because in that first issue you have him telling the Blizzard to turn around and go home because this is not
Right.
the fight that it wants. Um and so Thor basically says, all right, like this is the business of Skyfathers, so we gotta like let's handle business. And then Nyx butts in and says, for the Sky Mother would speak with you all. Um Zeus is pissed because he thought, Nyx killed him, and he's so pissed about that. But Zeus at the beginning says the wheel has turned and Zeus has risen from death. Nyx also has something to say about the wheel as well. So the wheel is something that Toronto's kept saying, like every single time we saw him, the wheel is turning, the wheel is turning, the wheel will turn, the wheel will always be turning. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just something, it's just this phrase we've been hearing since the series began, and we finally have like context to it, in part. It this idea that the wheel is turning, it's not like an actual wheel, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like it's more metaphorical than that. It's one of those like a passing of time and like an age,
Of
you
course.
know, So whatever age it's we're about to approach a dark age as the wheel, winter as they would call it,
Right.
or as Gaia would call it, the winter for like this world, for the universe, for the gods, whatever, for whatever, however you want to classify it.
Right.
Um, so she's just talking about like Nyx is just talking about how uh like this Zeus is just as arrogant as the one before, and then Thor says, "This is why we sought you out. Well, was his return your doing? What do you know of the wheel that turned in him?" And then she says, "What could I know of such? I am not thy mother, who is the changing season. I am not the rising of the sun, nor am I its setting. I am simply the cold calm of the midnight, the stillness of the breeze, the chirp of the crickets." And this pit and the flip on the next page is fire, dude.
Yeah.
It says, "And the moon that hangs overhead."
I love that art too.
She's uber pissed.
Yep.
So I was given Jan Basil Dua, I think that's how you say their name, like a bit of heat last issue because I just didn't think it was up to par on what this book should have for art. But this one, they definitely stepped it up.
Yeah.
Like
I
the
agree.
art on this was a lot better. If they can maintain this or just sharpen it up a little bit as the series goes on, if they're going to be the main artist on this series,
Right.
then I'm okay with that. Like this will get me through it. You know what I mean? Do I wish I still had Martin Kokolo? Of course, but like this will get the job done, and I can be happy with this. You know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and Thor here is just like, oh, then I'm sorry to have troubled you, gracious lady. We shall continue this conversation under another sky. And he just zips him and Hercules away right before Nyx crashes the moon into this planet
Right.
that Zeus is on. It's just funny because he's like, peace out.
Yeah. He's like, nope.
He's like, I don't. He's like, that's like this isn't what I asked for. And yeah. And then Hercules, like always, he's all like, man, he's like, I don't like running from a fight, man. Because Hercules is always ready to brawl. But even
Yeah.
then, was like, he's like, we're not running. We can't leave. We're stuck here. So
Right.
that was the other part of this. Loki is currently in his their teller of tales aspect, and they've locked Thor and Hercules in this endless night.
Right.
Um, it's the second test of three. So, this is kind of cooking along at a pretty good speed. Like we're only I guess technically 15 issues in with 16 if you count, Roxxon and the annual or whatever, but we're 16 issues into this run as a whole, and a lot has
I
happened.
would, yeah, I would say that add the giant size too. So
Yeah, and I haven't even read that yet, so
yeah.
17. And that's the other part of this story arc is giant size.
Okay.
Um, so Loki shows back up and Athena is with him in a very like almost kind of reminiscent of Athena from the Eternals kind of vibe.
Yeah. That's what it looks
Just not gold with like, but it matches the aesthetic that the other Greek gods got when they came back.
like. Yeah.
Um, so it is interesting to see that Athena has been affected by the turn of the wheel as well.
Right.
So, and then Thor says, or Loki says, Thor, have you met Athena, Greek goddess of wisdom? And since her wheel turned, the wisdom beyond wisdom. So Athena seems to be in a role similar to Loki in that she can, she's wise beyond wisdom and has some new capabilities.
Right.
Um, so yeah, Thor and Loki are still at odds with this. Like he's trapping him, testing him, and doing these things. And then it turns into this is not just a test for Thor; it's a test for Hercules as well.
Right.
It's revealed that it's both of them have to partake, and they both have a task to complete, but they basically have to figure it out on their own. They don't know what it is. Um, so with that being said, the next page is Nyx and Zeus have basically come to an agreement, and that they're going to raise a new race of deathless gods, and they're going to conquer everything.
Right.
Um, and then Hercules is like, so much has changed, but it's so much has stayed the same. You know, uh, And I love when Ewing writes Thor as just like taking little jabs at everybody. It's so funny, bro.
Yeah.
As Allfather, I have the power to officiate weddings, but I assume that's not why you're here.
Right.
It's just so funny to see him be like so arrogant, like and so
Yeah.
like nonchalant. Because that's like such a character trait for Thor is like, and that's what got him into this whole mess to begin with, you know, like he was so arrogant and so like, you know, just cocky in everything he did. So Odin said, "All right, I'm gonna humble your ass. I'm gonna send you to Earth, and you're gonna have to do all this."
Right.
So it's cool it's just nice to see like even 60 plus years later, he's still like the same like like lovable blonde shithead
Yeah.
that we know that he is. Um, so Zeus and Thor, continue their fight, and he's just telling like Thunderbolt after Thunderbolt, turn, 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 and it's just pissing Zeus off.
Yeah.
And so at this point, Zeus is like, damn you, stop flinching, take it like a god. And then he's like, turn again. And then Hercules is like, no. He's like, Thor, take it. He's like, that's the answer, is take it like a god.
Right.
And so then Thor is like, of course. So he takes the fight to Thor or to Zeus, and they like lock up. And Zeus thinks he gets the upper hand here, and he says, like, oh, like, it's like you could dodge the lightning from far away. He's like, but what happens when I deflect it inside of you? The lightning that lives inside of you. What
Right.
happens if I summon it in you? Which is hard as hell, man. That was cool. Like to basically say, all right, son of lightning, let me go ahead and it's cool, bro.
Yeah. Let me just
It's just
fight
yeah,
you.
it's just kick ass, man. Because it's like it's a cool way to use this power that I never would have thought of that. Like that's something I wouldn't have thought of. Like to see him be like, all right, you're gonna dodge my lightning bolts from far away, but you're made of the same shit I am. So let's just light you up.
Right.
And this Nyx here takes the opportunity to try and pull one on Hercules, but Hercules says, like, hold on just a minute, like just hear me out.
Yeah.
And he says, like, he's like, he faced the test head on, like as I would, and I have to learn from him. And then he says, like, I accept you, Nyx, and more than that, I forgive you. And she's like appalled by this because she's like, you dare, like, you're like beneath me.
Right.
And then he's all like, I would dare anything, which like Hercules is that guy, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally is that guy, bro.
Really
He'll
is.
say, I don't care, let's do it.
Yeah.
He's like that friend that you almost don't want around when you're getting into trouble because he's like, fuck it, let's do it anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but like the way that he responds to her is like something that I would not have expected from Hercules, but it's such a moment for him because it's his half of the test.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. That's what I'm liking about this is it's taking the two meatheads and making them
Yeah. Well, like, and that's the other thing too, is like, Thor has been like since this run has started, he's been like gaining all of this wisdom,
right.
being the All Father, creating Tormod, being tested by Loki on the blue spot of the moon. There's all of these things that's been testing his wisdom, and he's just been getting more, wiser and wiser as it has gone on, with the caveat of Tormod and the situation on Earth causing him to be like his senses to be dulled and his mind to be dulled.
Right.
So it's really, really nice to see the opposite happen with Hercules. Somebody who's always hard-headed, always a brute, always first to rush in, just to sit there and say, let's stop for a second. Let's look at what's happening and how can I learn from this? And he does really, really fast. And he says, this is a learning moment for me. I forgive you. I accept you for who you are and the being that you are. You don't have to be anything more than that. And he says, look around you, Nyx. This is the one thing that you wanted. You were given a land of eternal darkness and you're trying to leave.
Exactly.
He's like, this is your place of power and you want so badly to leave. And he doesn't understand why.
Yeah. And she's like,
And it
oh, I
makes,
never really looked at it like that.
right. And then in turn, it makes her realize, like, she's like, I completely missed this, And then she
Right.
realized I can build here. Like, I can build everything that I want. And it doesn't have to be in constant jeopardy. It doesn't have to be like, I don't have to battle with the forces of good over it because this is my air. This is where I reside.
Right.
And her children are confused by this because they're like, well, we've lived our whole, like, we were born for this purpose, you know, to kill, to terrify, for vengeance, for all of these things. But then she's like, like, we don't need this anymore. We won't need wrath and deceit and despair in the universes I create here. And so she gets rid of them.
Right.
But the only child she keeps is Hypnos, the dreamer.
Right. And she basically tells him to report back.
Yeah. And she says, like, you'll be my eyes and ears in the world above, like, but go with Hercules and stay with him. Like, be there for me.
All
And
right.
then at this point,
Got about 2 minutes left. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. So at this point, Loki or Hercules thinks it's over, but it's not. Um, this is where it gets crazy, man,
yeah,
because
dude, this was insane.
we jump right back to Thor and Zeus, and he's just sucking the life out of Zeus at this point.
Right.
Zeus is like, you should be burning as fuel. And he says, yeah, one of us is fuel, Zeus.
Right.
Basically saying, like, you know, your power pours into me as if I wasn't already, if it wasn't already meant for me.
Right.
Like, this was a destiny that was long foretold, and this is just, it's coming true now.
You're a prototype.
Yeah. So he sucks the life and power out of Zeus, and he goes through this change, and you can see it in the speech bubbles. And even Hercules says, like, I don't like this darkness in your voice.
Yeah.
And we turn the page to the wheel has turned on Thor. So
Yep.
Thor is now holding the power of two Skyfathers and a darkness that we don't have explained yet.
Right.
But hopefully the next issue will explain it. This has been a great, great read, bro.
Yeah, dude.
Cannot, it's just gonna get better too.
Yep.
Thanks again, guys. Catch you next time.
Later
So
on, guys.